As I said in the previous video, part 3 of the IELTS speaking test is not really testing your knowledge on a topic, but your ability to communicate an opinion clearly and effectively. For each part of the speaking test, I have told you to focus on a certain aspect of your speaking. For part 1, it was fluency, and for part 2, it was ideas and vocabulary. In part 3, there is a different focus for your speaking: structure. This is really the key to communicating an opinion as clearly as possible. And this approach can fit any of the 3 or more types of question you may be asked. I'll show you a structure that can be used when answering questions in part 3, and this is just one example. Obviously, there are many other structures that you could use. This is just a nice simple one to practice using. The structure has 3 steps. Firstly, you should give a direct answer to the question. This shows the examiner you know exactly what they are asking you. You can use some of the vocabulary that is in the question. There is really too little time to paraphrase the question. But if you can do this, then it's a bonus. The key here is to really understand the question. If you're struggling to understand the question, then it's difficult to give a direct answer that covers what is being asked. You must not rush the direct answer. Misunderstanding the question is easy to do. We'll talk about what you should do if you're finding it hard to understand the question in a later video. Once you've given a direct answer, which should only really need 1 sentence, you should move on to the second step, which is to explain. You must explain why you have the opinion. Don't wait for the examiner to ask you why. Tell them before they get the chance to ask. This increases the clarity of your answer. You will be giving reasons for the opinion you have, so the listener understands how you have come to have that opinion. This step may only need 1 sentence, but it is flexible. If your opinion requires more explanation, then maybe you should use 2 or 3 sentences to explain. The final step is to give an example. Examples can make your ideas clear and coherent, so it's important to try to give one before you finish your answer. The example needs to fit your explanation in the second step. Some students worry if this should be a specific example that is about you and your experience, or general, about the wider population. Both types of examples are fine. It just depends on the question. If the question is focused more on you, then your example should be more specific. But if the question is less about you and more about people in your country or around the world, then your example should be more general. As long as you give an example, it should make things a bit clearer for the examiner. You just have to make sure you do. I get a lot of students who forget to give examples. When you practice, try forcing yourself to say, "for example," before you finish an answer and see what comes out after. Now you know the 3-step structure, let's have a look at a sample question and answer. We'll look at the topic of family. How has the size of the family changed in the last few decades in your country? Well, I think family size has certainly got smaller in the past 30 years or so. In the past, people would usually have more children, But now people tend to have less children. Also, in my culture, grandparents would live in the same house. But now this is seen less often. For example, my parents have many siblings, and they also lived with their grandparents. So there were 3 generations in one household. Whereas I just have one sister, and my grandparents don't live with us. So there we have it. You can see we've gone through the 3 steps. A direct answer that's copying vocabulary and grammar from the question. And then an explanation explaining the direct answer. And finally, a nice, clear example that is specific to the speaker. Thanks for watching. If you found the video useful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos.